Okay. Uh, Good morning, everyone. So today we will begin with our 17th lecture of this course. We will essentially conclude the portion which we have studied concerning the switching activity, and thereafter we will move into the parasitics of the MOSFET devices, which will essentially lead us to the concept of layouts. Okay, so in our previous lecture, we have already seen the significance and the methods by which you can estimate the switching activity. Now, in today's lecture, we are going to find out the methods to reduce the switching activity in the circuits. Okay. Now, the first method is the logic restructuring or logical restructuring, whichever way you call it. Okay. Now, notice that suppose we want to implement, it's best that I'll tell you, it's best that we illustrate this concept using examples. So this is an example which I've shown. We have to effectively implement a function y equal to abcd. Okay, so you can represent it either in this way, ab into cd, and the other one is basically sort of cascade of two input AND gates. Remember, these are also two input AND gates. Here also you will require three AND gates, and these are also three AND gates. Okay, now what we are trying to conclude is which of these two configurations is better. So you can understand that at the node y you are going to achieve the same function, correct? So which of these is better and why? This is a very interesting thing, and something which you must remember for the rest of your VLSI career. Okay, in the interviews also you must tell this logical restructuring to reduce switching activity. This is one of the techniques. Okay, so let's do certain calculations. We are assuming that all inputs are equiprobable. So that means PA equal to PB equal to PC equal to PD is equal to half. Okay, so the probability of 1 or the probability of 0 is exactly 50% in each of these input nodes. Okay, so remember, this logical restructuring is something which is independent of the uh, probability of the inputs. Okay, so that's why we are taking it as half. So the probability of the node W over here to be 1, that is P1W, will be equal to, we know that it will be PA into PB. This is based on whatever we have studied in our previous lecture. Okay, uh, so PA into PB, as I said, PA and PB, all of these probabilities are half, right? So PA into PB will be 1/4, correct? Then what is P1 of X? P1 of X over here at this node, okay, will be equal to P1W multiplied by P1C or PC simply. PW is 1/4 into PC will be 1/8. So what is the probability of getting 1 at the output node Y? It will be simply Px into Pd, simple. The same way you will get 1 upon 16. Okay. So what is the probability of getting 0 at the output node Y? Will be 1 minus P1Y, that is 15/16. Correct. So what is the switching activity at the output node Y? I am considering the output node Y only because that is the place where we are essentially getting the desired Boolean function. Okay. So alpha of Y will be simply P1 into P0. All right. So that is 15/256 is 5.85%. Okay. So that means out of every 100 switching, the probability that the output Y will switch is only 5.85. Okay. All right. So that's what we got. Now let us do the same exercise for the similar circuit, but instead of putting D into C into A into B, all I have done is AB into CD. Okay. So one thing is very important here. You might be thinking that in terms of propagation delay aspects, okay, in terms of propagation delay, when we are essentially looking for looking forward to minimizing the delays or the delays of the circuit, so essentially we are trying to improve the performance of the circuit, then definitely this configuration will be better than this configuration. Okay, now clearly because of the as you can clearly understand, this has got to do with the parallel processing sort of thing. So because over here the node Y has to wait until X appears, because remember ABCD will, these signals are available instantaneously. Okay, so the D input over here is available when A or B inputs are available here, these two nodes. Okay, so the correct value of Y will have to wait until X appears. Okay, whereas in this case Y has to wait until X and W, they will appear simultaneously. So in terms of the logical effort, in terms of the propagation delays, in terms of the performance of the circuit, this is definitely better than this, and we will see it mathematically when we are dealing with logical effort. However, in this part of the course right now, we are dealing with the switching activity, which is essentially related to not the delays but the power consumption, switching power consumption, and short circuit power consumption. Okay, remember that only the dynamic power depends on the switching activity. Okay, so we are trying to reduce the dynamic power, so to speak. Perfect. So again, what is the value of P1W? PA into PB, very simple, 1 by 4. What is the P1X? Simply PC into PD, which is again 1 by 4. So what is P1Y? P1W into P1X, that is 1 by 4 into 1 by 4, that is 1 by 16. What is P0Y? 1 minus P1Y is 15 by 16. So therefore, the switching activity at Y is this, which is exactly the same as we had obtained for the previous circuit. Okay. Now what we are interested to see is that what are the switching activities of these individual nodes. Okay. For example, what is the value of alpha W? Alpha W means the switching activity at the node W. Notice P1W was 1 by 4. Okay. So what is P10? P0W, sorry. P0W will be 1 minus P1W. 3 by 16. 3 by 4. So therefore, alpha W will be 3 by 16. Perfect. Then what is the value of P0X? Again 1 minus P1, that is 7 by 8. That is 0.109. Okay. And this is 3 by 16 is 0.1875. Perfect, right? So उसी तरह से यहाँ का निकालते हैं. P1W is 1 by 4. So what is the P0W? 3 by 4. Similarly, P0X is equal to 3 by 4. ठीक है ना? So what do we get for the point alpha W and alpha X? The switching activities at these two nodes will be 1 by 4. Okay. Into is 3 by 16, as you can understand. P0W into P1W is 3 by 16. And again for alpha for X, okay, will be how much? P1X, that is 1 by 4, into P0X, that is 3 by 4, so 3 by 16. So essentially you can understand they are the same nodes kind of replicate. So that is also 3 by 16. Okay. So now comes the concluding part. Notice that alpha W remains the same for both of them. Okay. Alpha Y remains the same for both of them. So that means the first stage W over here, the first stage W over here, and Y, the final stage Y and final stage Y, they are having the same probability of switching. Okay. However, the if you see the switching activity of X over here is point 0.109, all right, whereas over here how much is it? It is alpha X, this is alpha X, this is alpha X, this is equal to 0. Okay. Now which of these is smaller? Remember, switching activity is smaller, the switching activity lesser will be the power consumption. Okay, do not forget, I mean, this is something which you should always keep in mind. So switching alpha CO VDD square into F, here is the alpha. So you are straight away decreasing the switching power because it is proportionate to the switching activity. So what do we realize here? That this configuration, since node X is switching less compared to the node X over here, therefore the left hand switching, the left hand circuit will have a lower switching activity, and therefore the lower dynamic power than the right hand side. Clear, everyone? Okay. Now this is something which we got through mathematics, right? So exact values which we have calculated. So what is the conclusion here? In fact, this brings us to the very, very important concept of pipeline architecture. So what we understand is the chain implementation or pipeline has a lower switching activity in the intermediate stages than the tree implementation with equiprobable random inputs. Overall alpha remains unchanged. So overall alpha is the alpha of Y. As you can see, they are the same for both, whether it is a tree implementation or the pipeline implementation. However, what we have clearly understood is that the intermediate stages, if we are putting it as a pipeline, that means cascade of the chips, you are essentially achieving lower switching activity. Now, as just as a conceptual thing, you should always remember, like, what is the price you are paying? Always remember, the power consumption is roughly inversely proportional to the performance. So that means if you want to have a circuit which is performing very good, you have to pay the price in terms of power consumption. Okay. And the reverse, or vice versa, reverse is true. So in this case, as you can understand clearly, that this circuit, the pipeline architecture, is better for power constraints. Okay, power considerations. The pipeline architecture, the chain implementation is better. As we have seen, the switching activity is lesser in the intermediate stages, whereas the tree implementation is better in terms of the performance. That we will see when we deal with the logical effort. Okay, so in the interviews, if somebody asks you, or interviews or wherever in your career, you just remember that uh, pipeline architecture is always preferred whenever we are trying to have better power uh, requirements. Okay, I must also tell you that this is the reason why in computer architecture the embedded system students are here. They will now connect the dots. Why is it that almost the entire RISC-V architecture, the entire microprocessors and all, they will essentially be dealing with pipeline architecture? Why pipelining is so important? It's because of this. Okay. Now what they are learning is probably they did not study it in this perspective, so to speak, with this understanding that why pipeline is necessary. Okay. If I ask the embedded system students or those who have done the VLS architecture, ki pipelining क्यों करते हैं? Just because it is there in the textbook? No. What happens is this pipeline architecture reduces the power consumptions because alpha, the switching activity for the subsequent intermediate stages, will be much, much lesser. Okay. Then the question is, what do you learn in the embedded systems and VLSI architecture, reconfigurable computing, and all this kind of architecture oriented courses? कि how to use pipelining and improve the performance. आप लोग क्या करते हो? We will do lot of exercises in case of uh, static timing analysis, in which we will see there is something called cycle stealing. I don't know if you know this. There is another concept of time borrowing. Okay, so all these are there when we are dealing with static timing analysis, and these concepts are essentially going to help us to get the better of both of them. That means we will be using pipeline architecture anyway, but using static timing analysis, we will find out the violations, and then what we will do is we will essentially use these techniques in static timing analysis. There are a few more also. I am not writing all of them right now. So these kind of techniques, with static timing analysis techniques, or in VLSI architecture, I think you are supposed to learn all this in your CAD for IC design, or this one VLSI architecture, RC, and all that. So once you know these techniques, what happens is, using the pipeline, you are essentially going to gain in terms of the time as well. So that means this this kind of tree architecture is, I mean, it's used. I'm not saying that it is totally obsolete, but pipelining is preferred in modern technology. Okay, very good. So the first method to reduce the switching activity is the logical restructuring. Okay, the second one. Okay, so just keep in mind this conclusion, which is pretty important. Remember, the final stage alpha remains unchanged. Okay, whereas the intermediate stage, the alphas will be lower, the switching activities will be lower in the intermediate stages. As a consequence, the total switching power which is consumed in the entire system, entire circuit over here, will essentially reduce. Okay, na? Very good. The second method that we are going to learn is called input reordering. The input reordering, it has got to do with non-equiprobable inputs. Okay, so over here what we are seeing is all the equiprobable inputs. Okay, equiprobable means PA, PB, PC, PD equal to half. Okay, now in case of the situations, as I discussed in at length in the previous lecture, there are circumstances because of noise or many other things that the probability that the inputs are exactly 0 or exactly 1 may not be 50%. Okay, so in those cases, for non-equiprobable inputs, then we have to find out how to reorder the inputs such that we achieve the least amount of switching power. Okay, all right, so here also it's the same thing. ABC, ABC, the output product is the same. So what I'm trying to explain in both of them is that we are essentially achieving the same output, uh, same boolean expression at the output. Okay, please try to understand. So for example, in your VLSI design or previously, what you used to do, किसी भी तरह से y equal to ABCD निकालो, काम खत्म. ठीक है, okay. Whether you are doing it in this way or this fashion, you never bothered. But right now, this is advanced VLSI design. We are trying to find out both of these are correct as far as your outputs are concerned. Both of them will essentially even give you the same switching activity at the output node. Sorry, not this one. Here. Here. Okay. But what is important now is that when you are making an IC out of it, okay, this entire bunch of transistors together, then you will notice the entire system, entire circuit will obviously be having a lesser power in this case rather than this one. Okay, many a times I have seen the students make a mistake whenever I ask them to estimate the power consumption. In your projects also, many of you will make the same mistake, I'm pretty sure. Even the attendances, I see 26 students have come today. Huh. but the number of students registered in this course is 57. Okay, so not even 50%. So I have given up arguing about this in bits, so you are on your own. All right, so the thing is that you will still make the mistake in the exams and in the interviews. The mistake which you will make is, whenever I try ask you to estimate the power consumption, you will only find the power consumption at the output node. Really, these intermediate nodes, you will not, they are also switching, right? They are also consuming power. They will also be having the capacitances, right? Why are you only thinking about the load capacitance here? There will be the capacitances there also. Even if you do not put any capacitance, specifically the load or anything, they will anyway be having the parallel of the capacitance seen at this node, parallel. So basically the sum of the capacitance seen at this node, sum of the capacitance seen on this other node. This is the input, this is the output. Yes or no? It's the same thing over here. Okay? So please do not be stupid and basically calculate only the power at the output node. So foolish. You have to consider the power consumption at each of these nodes. All right. So what we have understood is, now it is clear. Input reordering. For non-equiprobable inputs, okay, again, we are achieving the same output here, ABC, ABC. All right. So, however, PA is 0.5, very good. That is, PA is equiprobable. Okay. The signal A is equiprobable. PB is 0.2, PC is 0.1. Then let us check it out. What happens in terms of the switching activity? What is the value of alpha x here? PA into PB, into 1 minus PA. So this is basically, I should write like this. Correct. So PA is 0.5, PB is 0.2 given in the example. 1 minus this, you will achieve, yeah, you will achieve 9%. Okay. Now, in this case, all I've done is, instead of putting ABC, I have put, let us say, BC into A. So first I'm taking the product of this. So over here, what is the value of alpha x? PC into PB, 1 minus PC PB. So that is only 1.96%. All right. So that is for the node X. Where what is the P1X? P1X is simply 0.5 into 0.2, that is 0.1. This is 0.2 into 0.1 is 0.02. Okay. Why are we trying to find out this P1X and P1X over here? Because I'm essentially trying to find out the switching activity at the output node here. Okay. So what is the alpha of Y? So P1X, I should not call it 1, this is Px. This should not be 1, this is x. Okay. So now you can clearly understand the P1X is 0.1. So I have just done the same. PC is 0.1 given in the question. Okay. In the example, which I'm showing you. So over here, Px was 0.02 and Pa was 0.5. Okay. So in the end, what is the switching activity at the output node? The switching activity at the output node. Okay. So what do we conclude? That at the output node, again, the switching activity remains the same, whether you are doing AB into C or BC into A. All right. See, 9.9 10 power minus 3, 9.9 10 power minus 3. Awesome. However, the switching activity at the intermediate stage, x, here it is, sorry, where is x? Yeah, here it is 0.09, here it is 0.0196. Okay, so what do we conclude? This is only 1.96%. So out of every 100 switching or 100 cycles, point X will switch only twice. 1.96 is roughly 2. Okay. This is 9%. So every 100 switching, that means every clock cycle, every 100 clock cycles, the node X over here will switch 9 times. 9 times here, only 2 times there. Okay. So again, as in the previous case, the output node alpha remains the same. So that means the switching power as well, let me just say call it dynamic power. The total dynamic power consumption at the output node remains the same because the switching activity remains the same. 9.9 10 power minus 3, 9.9 10 power minus 3. However, as I said, the overall power is what we are concerned about. So x के लिए this is 0.09, x point के लिए 0.0196. Therefore, this one is better. Okay, so this configuration is better. So what is the summary of this analysis? Notice what we have done here. This is ABC, just randomly I chose. Okay, so this is 0.5. Let me just write it here. This is 0.5. This is 0.2. This is 0.1. I am just writing in terms of the uh, probability of the input high. Here I have done the reverse. Okay, the lowest probability first, उसके बाद the middle, and the highest probability input at the last. Okay, so what do we conclude? That postponing the input signals, this is the conclusion, postponing the input signals in the increasing order of their transition rate. Transition rate is basically the probability of getting high or low, is beneficial for power reduction in the intermediate stages. Overall alpha remains unchanged. Okay, so what do we understand is that if you have got different probabilities of the inputs, then make sure that the inputs with the lowest transition rates are at the beginning of the circuit. Okay, got it everybody? Any questions? Because after that we will be going into the new topic. All right, that concludes our studies on switching activity. Now we will come into the capacitance, very, very important part of our course. So there is a small disclaimer over here, is that when we are dealing with the parasitics, um, I have already told you in the class, in this course itself, that the output capacitance at any node CO is equal to the load, external load, which you are imposing as a circuit designer, plus the internal capacitance of the MOSFET, plus the parasitic capacitances due to the layout. Okay, so what we will do is, the CL is something, how to determine the CL, the load capacitance of any circuit, that is essentially kind of based upon the value of the, I mean the sum of the internal and parasitic capacitance as a whole. So CL should be at least one order larger than these two, such that it becomes easier for us to kind of ensure that output is governed only by CL, because CL is much larger than these two, right? So it gives us a better control about on our circuits. Anyway, we will look into it later. Um, so the C internal part, that is internal, you call it internal capacitances or intrinsic capacitances, is basically the same. So the intrinsic capacitances is taught, this the intrinsic capacitances are taught in details in PMMD. We have done each and every region of operation. So our PMMD students are in an advantage right now. So they already know all this. So I am not going into the details of it. So why the saturation region CGS is 2/3 WLCox? I think the PMMD students even wrote the answer in their end semester examinations as well. Okay. So uh, you have to do a lot of derivation and you have to find out the charges, which is clearly beyond the scope of this course. However, these were done in details in PMMD lectures. I will strongly recommend that uh, if you have forgotten, or embedded system students who have not understood all this, why the intrinsic capacitances are like this, I will strongly recommend again that you must go through the PMMD lectures and learn this, because these are patent questions in the interviews. Anybody can ask, why is the saturation region 2/3 WLCox? Okay. So it's not so easy, I'll tell you, and that is the reason why I'm skipping in this advanced VLSI design course. It will take at least 3 to 4 lectures just to discuss about the internal capacitances of a MOSFET, as we had done in our PMMD. But what you have to just keep in mind, okay, is this is intrinsic capacitances. There is a mistake I have noticed, that people consider that intrinsic capacitance is also part of the parasitics. Actually, no. Intrinsic capacitances are internal to the MOSFETs. That is basically given by CGS and CGD, as you can see. However, the output capacitance which I have shown in the previous equation, which I wrote on the top here with CL and CO and all that, remember that the terminal capacitances are what you are essentially interested in. So over here, for example, I have just drawn the various CGS, CGD, CDB, CSB, all these various internal capacitances to the MOSFET. Okay. However, as a circuit designer, you don't bother about CGS, CGD, CSB, CDB and all that, because that is only the intrinsic capacitance. So intrinsic capacitances plus the parasitics plus load, if any, will give you the capacitance seen at the terminals. Okay, the highlighted one. That means the net effective capacitance seen at the terminals. That is essentially going to determine the circuit performance. Okay, please understand that the yellow which I have drawn over here, CS, CG and CD, that is what makes the difference. Of course, CB is there, but I am not considering CB because body and source are shorted and all that. Okay, are you getting me, everyone? So please understand this, that as a circuit designer, we will be concerned about the net effective capacitance seen at the terminal nodes, not what is going on inside. All right, very good. So let's begin. So in order to estimate the output capacitances, what we will do is, first we will just brush up a little bit, revise a little bit about the results of the intrinsic capacitance, not the derivation, not the physics behind it, because that will take a lot of time and that is not the purpose of this course. Later on, what we will see, after I've conclude the intrinsic capacitance part, we will jump into the parasitics and how to calculate the parasitics. And as you will see that we are already in the layouts. So the parasitic capacitance has got its meaning only when you are doing physical layouts. Okay, जब तक आप schematics बनाओगे, आपका parasitic capacitance will always be 0. आपका कोई tension नहीं है. And that is the reason why schematic entry, schematics and all that is only half the picture. Half nahi, at least 75% of the picture. But anyway, it's not the whole picture at all. Okay? So that means if you have succeeded in designing an IC, a chip, which is working perfectly well, okay, even after everything, but you have not done the layouts, your design will not even be acceptable for fabrication in the fab labs. Okay? So that means if you want to give it to IMEC or TSMC or any of these fab companies, global foundries, for your chip design, they will not even be interested unless you give them the layout. ठीक है, layout is a physical design. Okay, so layout के बाद आपको करना होता है एक step that is called post layout synthesis. Okay, so only after the post layout synthesis you will get a complete picture including the parasitics in the account. Okay, so that means when you are essentially designing a simple inverter, okay, but you want to fabricate that, you want to make a chip out of that inverter. Okay, inverter chip बनाना है, होता है, कर ही सकते हो. हाँ. So if you want to make that inverter chip, the smallest inverter chip, so unless and until you get your design after the post layout synthesis, after the LVS check, after the post layout synthesis, only if it is correct, only then that layout you have to share it with the fabrication companies, global foundries, there, national semiconductors, many are there. Okay, so in fact, you will notice even Intel is going fabless right now because the amount of money that the industries have to spend to create their own fabs, it's not worth that effort, time, and money. So what they do is, internationally, what is being done is there are dedicated fab industries. They will simply take the contract from BITS or IITs or ISC Bangalore or MIT or Stanford, whichever institute in the world. Those are academic institutes. They will do it at a cheaper rate, or else from any of the companies like Intel, IBM, and all that. So what they will do is they'll simply share their physical layout, which is basically protected under IP laws, and that chip design, okay, will essentially reach the fab labs, and they will just simply do the fabrication and give it to you in exchange for money. Okay, so they will not be responsible of any other designs, so that is basically copyrighted. As I had discussed with the PMMD students in the previous course, PMMD course, that why is it that every Apple product, every HP product, everything you purchase, okay, they are kind of Dell. Dell is a complete US company, right? However, every Dell products are made in China or made in Indonesia and all that. So how is it made in Indonesia, made in China or anything? It's simply because the designs are essentially made in the US, okay, but they are manufactured, all right, in the fabs in China. Got it? So we are essentially training you to become those designers. The designs are important. Many people get very excited about the fab, but I'm telling you, uh, these are the donkey's work. To be honest, I'm just using filthy words here, but essentially it is donkey work only. Okay, in the fab labs, they are simply running some instruments, and these kind of donkey work will is every year they are getting reduced. Those people in the fabs, the people are getting uh, the job requirement in the fabs is getting reduced like anything at an alarming rate thanks to AI. Okay, so there is a possibility that after another 10 years the entire fab division will be governed by robots, which can do a much better job than the Chinese workers. Okay, Chinese and Indonesian workers in the factories, they will be done by robots, and they'll be doing it at a much more precise way, and they'll work 24/7. Okay, so in fact I predict that after 10-15 years or so, you will notice that people who will be recruited by global foundries or TSMC or UMC, okay, these people, they will all be machine learning and artificial intelligence experts. They will be hired just to operate those robots. So the manual worker force is totally gone. So I'm telling you at the very beginning, if you want to make yourself future proof for the because I'll tell you, our career is right now beginning. So essentially in another 20-30 years my career will be over. But after 20-30 years, you will be at your peak, all of you right now. Okay. So in the middle of your career, you will find that everywhere it will be AI. In fact, there are research is going on where the robots will essentially be doing open heart surgeries. All right. So now, I mean, a time will come probably that the best heart surgeons, cardiac surgeons, they are essentially very good at artificial intelligence. Okay, they know how to operate the robots who will be operating in the OT. All right. So what I'm suggesting is, um, try to understand the I mean, try to understand the physics, try to understand the designs, because as artificial intelligence people, you will have to feed in all these data. Okay, you have to understand what is going on inside the device, you have to essentially understand how to do the operation of heart surgery. Okay, I'm just taking heart surgery just out of I mean, just as an example. Hmm. All right, so now you can understand that the stereotype job market is totally will be gone. The people in the process technology will be gone. The fabrication people will be gone. What will be necessary is your original thinking. Okay, so the uh, that's what I'm trying to tell you. Try to design a new circuit, try to design a new device, but how to actually make it as a fabrication, that will be done by the robots. I'm always trying to emphasize this. If you are doing any fabrication kind of work, just be aware that after 20 years you will not have a job in that sector at all. Okay, so if you are really smart, try to figure out ways by which you can make the robots do this fabrication for you. So you have to amalgamate machine learning into all this. Okay, as you can see, in different areas, in different specializations, gradually machine learning is going into those areas. Okay, so essentially the moment machine learning and AI is essentially going into that area, gone, the manual job is completely gone. Right. For example, I'll tell you, um, earlier days there was a very nice very trendy job of interpreter. All of you know, right? So you will find our president is going and speaking with the Chinese president. The Chinese president is coolly speaking in Chinese, and the person beside him, he is essentially doing the translations, right? That interpreter job, such a nice job, I used to appreciate it very much. Now that job is gone, because simply it's a matter of speech processing, and AI has already, I mean, done havoc amount of work in that work, in that domain, speech processing. So I will be speaking in Chinese, I'll be speaking in Bengali, I don't know Chinese, I'll speak in Bengali, and the Telugu people out there, they will simply put on a headphone, and that headphone will automatically translate my Bengali into your Telugu. The language barrier is totally obsolete now. So now you realize the kind of people who used to do the translations and interpreters, that entire job sector is gone. Correct. In fact, I remember when I was in the US and in Europe, when we used to go, especially in Europe. In US there was no problem, everybody speaks in English over there. So when I was in Europe and I used to go to, let us say, Sweden or Denmark and all those, Danish and all. I mean, in Europe, each and every country would be of different language, right? So over there, I don't know so many languages. I know German little bit and I know French, in addition to English and Hindi and Bengali. I'm learning Telugu little bit right now. So the thing is, when I used to go to some Greece, for example, Italy, Spain, Portugal, each and every country is having different language. So what I used to do, I used to visit their museums or sightseeing places and all that. So they will simply give me a headphone, and they have got this AI built in, right? So there is no interpreter or somebody to demonstrate, right? The guide, as we see in India. ताजमहल देखने जाओगे तो 500 रुपए लेते हैं, पूरा दिखा देते हैं. Now the point is that that sector is gone. You simply put on that headphone and you select the language, and accordingly it is going to, you just go around in the museum, it will basically tell you which artifact is the history behind each and every artifact. So you can realize ये गाइड वाला काम गया, टूर गाइड का काम गया, इंटरप्रेटर का काम गया. सिमिलरली अनदर 10-15 years ये फेब्रिकेशन वाला काम भी जाएगा. Please try to realize this alarming situation. So those of you who are thinking, okay, I will go into that lab, do some MEMS, do some fabrication, awesome, you do it, of course. I mean, there is no harm in doing that. But all I am telling you is that it will become obsolete in industry in another 10-15 years, as it has already become in many of these professions I have just told you. Okay? So does it mean that AI will do everything? No. All that matters is AI is what? AI is the best possible servant in the world. Best possible servant. Robots are the best possible servants. Computers are best possible servants. But you are the person who is coding the computer. Okay? Remember, Google is the best possible search engine. Absolutely. But Google is as good as the computer science experts who are working in Google can code the search engines. Okay? Suppose from tomorrow somebody says, okay, we will use Surya Sir's search engine in Google. The very next day, the whole world will be totally in jeopardy, because I do not know, I am not even close to the coding level of Google, right? So think in those ways. Remember the codes I used to write in this PMMD as well as in AVLSI. Okay, I used to draw using Python, all that. Okay, that is where you will be required. Your understanding is required. Your coding skills are required. Operating the machines, not required at all. ठीक है, कोई पूछेगा भी नहीं. ठीक है. Why will they pay you 1 lakh rupees, 1.5 lakh rupees per month when they will spend the same amount of money for a robot, okay, and they will be working 10 times more efficiently than you. Okay, 10 is a small number. It will be 100 times, 1000 times more efficient than you. They will not ask for any leaves. They will work even on Sundays. Why? I mean, there absolutely no point. So all I'm suggesting is take this seriously. Understanding is way more important. Why? क्यों कर रहे हो? ये 2/3 WL Seox है. क्यों है? क्यों? That you have to understand. For example, robot के बता दोगे? Robot will basically find out ABCD, Y equal to ABCD. Awesome. Now, once you have an understanding that no, Surya sir taught us that it is pipeline architecture that will give us lower power. You make the robot design it for you. Robot doesn't matter. I mean, it will do this circuit perfectly. It will design this circuit perfectly. It will design this circuit also perfectly. Which one of this is better is your idea, your intelligence. ठीक है, आप समझ रहे हो ना, तुक्का मार के नहीं होगा ये, आप ऐसे भी बना सकते हो। पहले वीएलएसआई डिजाइन में शायद ऐसे ही बनाते थे, लेकिन अभी आपको समझ में आ रहा है कि नहीं नहीं, ये वाला बेहतर है, इसीलिए पाइपलाइंस यूज होते हैं इंडस्ट्री में। फिर जैसे यहां पर अगर इक्विप्रोबेबल है, आई मीन अगर नॉन इक्विप्रोबेबल है, देन यू हैव टू अरेंज अकॉर्डिंग टू द इंक्रीजिंग ऑर्डर ऑफ ट्रांजिशन रेट्स। ठीक है, all right, so just because the junction capacitance and all will take a longer time, so we will I will dedicate it for Tuesday, but before that I'll conclude today's lecture with the intrinsic capacitances. There is no space. Look at this. This is already known to the PMMD students, so I'll keep asking questions to them and we will revise. ठीक है, so all right, so this is the point where VGS equal to VT. Okay, so you are increasing VGS along this axis. ठीक है, so between 0 to VT, what is this region called? Anyone can answer?
Subthreshold region.
Excellent, इसको हम subthreshold बताएंगे. Very good. So this is your VGS here, right? So that means what do we understand? That this is basically VDS equal to VGS minus VT part, है ना? So this is basically your linear saturation boundary. So between VT and VDS plus VT, what is the situation here? That means we will say that VGS in this case is greater than VT, is less than VDS plus VT. So VGS greater than VT means of course it is in the transistor is working. ये linear हो सकता है, saturation हो सकता है, ठीक है? So I'll just remove this because here it is switched on basically. All right. So what do we get from here? VDS is greater than VGS minus VT. I'm speaking about this region here. So what is this region?
Saturation.
Very good. So this is obviously linear now. Okay. Mathematically also, here you will understand that VGS, as you can see, VGS is greater than this VDS plus VT. Therefore, VDS is lesser than VGS minus VT. That is overdrive, VOV. Perfect, right? So enough. Now, I'll just discuss like when VGS is less than VT, inside the MOSFET, what is happening? There is no channel region at all. Channel will be formed only when VGS equal to VT, correct? तो यहाँ पर अगर channel नहीं है, ठीक है, then that means you are going to have internal capacitance की बात कर रहा हूँ, internal capacitance, you are not going to have any observable capacitance. Remember, I am not speaking about any parasitics as of now. Parasitics हम बाद में आएंगे. फिर how does it happen? How does it essentially affect the internal capacitances, or the overall capacitance is something we will see later. ठीक है? Initially, what we understand internal to the MOSFET, the capacitance is practically zero because there is no channel. Very simple. Okay. अभी VGS becomes greater than VT. This region, saturation region में. ठीक है? In the saturation region, what is happening is that the channel region will look something like this. Okay, so this is your pinch off point. the detailed study of pinch off is beyond the scope of this course, please check out the PMMD. अगर यहाँ पर pinch off point है, then first thing is that notice that beyond the pinch off there is no channel. Therefore, what do we get? CGD. So this is your gate, this is the drain. Okay. CGD. This capacitance will be 0 because again there is no channel, just as in this case. यहाँ पर क्या था, ये कोई channel था ही नहीं. So what we would write here is that CGS equal to CGD equal to 0 in the subthreshold region. Over here what we get is CGD is 0. However, the entire capacitance will be concentrated on the source side because as you can see there is a channel region over there. Okay, so here CGS turns out to be 2/3 WLC aux. But why 2/3 WLC aux? Again, please check it out in the PMMD course. Okay, so यहाँ पर this is the maximum. So if this is your WLC aux, so इसका 2/3 will be here. So what is the on the y-axis? I'm sorry, this is the CG which we are plotting. Total gate capacitance. Okay. So what will be the total gate capacitance? CG will be equal to. इधर से देखो. This is one terminal. This is another terminal. This is one terminal. This is another terminal. So that will be simply. This is your CGS. This is your CGD. So CG will be equal to CGS plus CGD. All right. तो हम CG draw कर रहे हैं यहाँ पर. So this will essentially go up like that, and it will remain at how much is this? 2/3 WLC aux. Remember, I'm plotting CG. So why is that? Because if this is the situation in the saturation region, what is the value of CG? Simply this CGS वाला ही रहेगा. CGD is 0. Correct? Very good. Now comes beyond VDS plus VT. What is the situation? I'll do one thing. I'll just simply copy this. Okay. So this was saturation. This is linear. In the linear region, there is hardly any tapering of the channel. That channel will be uniformly spread out. Okay. So what we will do is we will simply say that okay, CGS equal to CGD half. Okay. So what is the value of CG? WLC aux, because it is a sum. So what it will look like? From here it will rise up and it will be like this. All right. Now if you try to find out the individual ones, then okay, I'll just write it here, that is better. CGS is equal to 2/3 WLC aux. CGD is equal to 0. Linear region में क्या होगा? CGS equal to CGD equal to half of WLC aux. Okay. So what is the worst case scenario here? Net effective gate capacitance कहाँ सबसे ज़्यादा है? Obviously linear region में, है ना? So in the linear region is what we will consider. Remember when we were dealing with the resistances, जब हम currents निकालते थे, I've been telling you ना, from the resistance perspective, the worst case scenario was the resistance will be in the worst case delays will be in the linear region, right? So from the capacitance perspective also we find that the maximum gate capacitance will be seen in the linear region. ठीक है? So what happens is when you are trying to find out the delays, जब हम logical effort करेंगे, आप समझना इस बात को, then what we will observe is we will always consider linear region, because that will give you an estimate of the worst case possible. So if you can design with respect to the worst case possible, things will be better for the others. Yes or no? All right. So that is basically the summary of a small discussion about the intrinsic capacitances here. Okay. In the next class, what we will do is we will start with the parasitics proper. That means the junction capacitances and the sidewall capacitances, bottom capacitances, and all that. Okay. Thank you. That's all for today.